Light painters and shutterbugs. Focus in on your unsuspecting subject. Await with patience the golden hour of light. And snap, snap, flash, flash! A momentary lapse in perfection is documented for the world to see!
Mr. Sade, over here, Mr. Sade,
Oh.
Mr. Sade.
Oh, God.
It's time to talk Tull to me.
Oh, no! Welcome back, I am Omen Thomas Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are Feckless Moans.
And this, dear ones, as you have come to expect, is Talk Tull to Me.
A 2-page full-color scandal in the seedy tabloids of prog rock, in which Nikon Nick and overexposed Omen will inexpertly waste rolls and rolls of cellulose nitrate on every single picturesque track that photogenic rock band Jethro Tull has ever developed. We will blow out our bulbs on the Martin Barr burst rate. We will fill our portfolio with pixelated David's Peg. And we will vibrantly vignette Peter John Vitesse, all with an eye of capturing a national flutographic masterpiece. And by poking a pinhole in a shoebox, we will attempt to create a blurry upside-down image of the Shaggy Scotsman, if enough photons pass through the Anderson aperture.
Isn't the science behind photography just, mind-blowing? It's basically your eyeball, too. It's the exact same science.
They make a pair of glasses that will reverse the image that you see so that you actually start seeing things as your eyeball actually sees them, which is upside down.
Right.
And then what happens is that your brain flips it to be the right side up, but the glasses re-flip it. And so you see it upside down until, if you wear it for 24 hours, your brain will re-flip it. And then if you take the glasses off, then everything's upside down again.
And your brain just throws up inside of your skull.
Yes. Yes.
That's bananas.
Yeah.
That's bananas. The human machine, ladies and gentlemen.
Speaking of machines, Nick, welcome back. It's great to be a part of the machine.
Part of the machine. That's the end of next. Yeah, the next album, I believe.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. In 3 years, we'll get there.
For today, we have the distinct pleasure of listening to and then talking Tull about another song by Jethro Tull, the rock band.
That is correct. We're just about rounding out the album at this point. Bonus tracks aside, we are on the penultimate track off of Under Wraps. We're going to talk Paparazzi today.
We're going to under-wrap it up soon.
We're going to wrap it under. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. So rather than faff about anymore, let's get into Paparazzi, shall we?
Oh, I was going to faff about, but yeah, no, let's do that. Let's listen to this song.
You can faff while doing it. You don't faff on company time, Omen.
Let's faff a listen.
Let's faff away. Omen, that was Paparazzi.
That sure was. And you know what I realized?
This is not the first time you've heard Paparazzi,
Well,
is it?
it is and it isn't.
Is it because you've heard that opening sting for our Instagram? Is that the only ever reference you've heard?
That is accurate, yeah.
Wow.
When it started up, I was like, oh yeah, I know this one. And then I got into it and I was like, I've never heard past the bit that you sampled for our sting.
Wow. What are your feelings on this then? I think this is a very unique sound for Tull.
Well,
even nestled in this album, I think it sounds super unique. So what are your thoughts on this for a first time listen?
You know, I feel a little confused by it, and maybe it is because it's such a unique sound. But I agree, it is very unique to Tull, even within the context of this album. I mean, this album is so unique for Tull, but
right.
I'm kind of I feel like there's such a driving force to it, and the couple of riffs that make up most of the song are so good that I'm craving a little bit of that that contrast, which this song has less of than I think what we are used to from a lot of Tull songs.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, most of the song is that da 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 da.
Yeah.
Bum, ba, bow. And then we get a little bit of relief with the section that begins. Now someone's cut the lines. Communication's down.
Now someone's cut the lines. Communications down.
We get a bit of a bridge, a bit of a change in tone. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's that very kind of high-paced. Bum, 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 bow, bow, bow.
There are those moments where it's really light and kind of mellifluous compared to that kind of heavier Martin that comes in at times. I do think there's some really nice contrast in here.
There is, and maybe it's just something that you have to listen to more than once, maybe because you're more familiar with it. I mean, that's a very common experience that I've had with Tull, which is, that the first time you listen to it is just kind of this wave of sound, and because it's more complex than your average sock-wearing rock band.
Sock band. You're having a sock band.
You know, that it takes a while to digest. It takes a while to hear all the bits. But at first listen, I kind of feel like I just want to dance to this at a club with my brain off.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also the nature of this album itself is because we're so accustomed to hearing the kind of more traditional electric sound or the folk sound. So even if we're hearing one of those songs for the first time, our ear is tuned to be able to pick out the pieces as it's happening, whereas this is still kind of cacophonous even after a fourth or fifth listen for me, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a lot harder to, on first listen, be noticing the nuance.
But even just listening to it that second time, you're totally right. There is that kind of B section that's a little softer, a little bit more introspective, a little bit more mysterious. And then we do have some nice variation from Martin coming in with different types of sounds. I mean, that main riff that goes through, that is for most of the song, but he does have some other sections that bring out some other textures with the guitar. The drum machine is very steady and not super front. It's not very front in the sound here. But at the same time, it also is driving the song in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a successful application of the drum machine.
It is successfully applied.
It is applied. It's on a wait list for Harvard, but it's really, cross fingers, it's on the top of that wait list.
Mother, I have received a letter. I am going to drum machine school. Boop, 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 boop. That makes me cry.
Musical tears. Wah, wah, wah. It's just perfectly rhythmic.
Your father and I wanted a lawyer bot.
Wait, is it going to drum school? Is it going to get a degree in like the liberal arts?
Yeah, but from Harvard. It's going to Harvard for drumming.
Okay, that's not bad. Did you ever see...
Tell that to its mother.
Oh, fair enough. It should be NYU. Did you ever see Whiplash?
No, what is that?
Oh, it's so good. I think it's NYU, the school. J.K. Simmons plays this like super crazy, like hardcore, insane drum teacher, and it's basically him versus this kid who's trying to be an amazing drummer, and it's beautiful and amazing, and I love J.K. Simmons. He's phenomenal in it. I highly recommend it. It's
nice.
Very, very good. Yeah.
So, I mean, again, this feels like the kind of early. It's a sound that I'm not sure quite what to do with. And I think that, this is, we're obviously going to talk about we're at the point in the album where we typically talk about the reviews, the critical response. Correct. And so my mind is going there a little bit now.
Sure.
And so I think that, maybe some of what we're feeling, or at least I'm feeling, is probably what a lot of people felt at the time that this album was released, which is like, okay, what is this?
Yeah, definitely.
This doesn't sound like Jethro Tull, but it's not doing pop synth to the level that the pop synth bands are doing pop synth. So what is it? I don't know what to make of it.
Right. It's Tull doing pop synth. Yeah. And I think this song in particular be honest, it sounds like it could be a bonus track. it doesn't quite fit in here.
Or if you had a different voice singing this song and you were like, oh yeah, this is an unreleased track from Sting and the Police, I'd be like, okay, cool. Nice.
Interesting, yeah.
You can totally hear someone else singing this song and not bat an eye.
So it's really just the delivery from Tull that is making you... that just doesn't sit right?
It's not even that it doesn't sit right, because I like the song.
Yeah. It's just so foreign.
It's so foreign.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, and it's really interesting that it's at this point in the album. I do feel like it's probably a clever placement in the album, because if this had been, straight off the bat, I would literally have to take the disc out.
And just frisbee it into the sky and just figure out where it lands.
I was going to say take it out and make sure it's the right album,
Oh, okay.
Did I accidentally put in, something that's not Jethro Tull?
I guess I was a bit overreactive there.
You're like, yes, you'd check the cassette, you'd light it on fire, you'd put it in the microwave. Yeah, obviously.
Immediately dispose of it.
Yeah.
Drop it in the hydrochloric acid. Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Light it on fire with napalm.
Yes. Launch it straight into the sun.
No, I wouldn't clock this as a Jethro Tull song. Out of all the songs on this album thus far, this is the one that the most is untethered from what came before it. And that's not a bad thing necessarily.
Right.
It's just they've so effectively gone in a direction that it's taken on some new characteristics. It's really bizarre. I'm having a hard time processing it, Nick.
Yeah, and I think honestly, content-wise, I think it's the most removed from, kind of that first one. Lap of Luxury is a bit of a stretch to fit in the spy thriller here, but this one also feels like a stretch. So that paired with the sound of it, it does feel, again, it's that sore thumb. It's just out of place.
Do you want me to kiss that thumb and make it all better?
I mean...
would you like a thermometer?
A thermometer?
A thermometer.
Can we put the thermometer on my thumb? Yep, it's a thumb.
Doctor, I'm getting thumb. Oh, God.
Mr. Sade, I'm sorry. It's a thumb.
There's some interesting tidbits to point out. You have been very diligent about pointing out the vocal attacks, the vocal ejacts.
The trips, the trills, the yips, the yarnies. Yeah, there's plenty in here, that's for sure.
The bells and whistles. There's a really nice uh-huh.
They've got their crayons out, son.
Yeah, that's, I guess, if there's one through line to tie this into the rest of it, that is the most prominent. Yeah, I mean, yes, there's synth and yes, there's drum machine, but the vocalizations here really make it a part of this album.
And the way that he's singing. I mean, this is consistent with the rest of the album in terms of that more poppy song. His voice is pitched up really high. It sounds great. I mean, honestly, this is a very listenable song, and maybe that's what I slightly don't like about it.
That's why I hate it.
Like what? You want me to enjoy this? How dare you?
No, this is Jethro Tull. I have to torture myself and everyone else who can hear it around me. According to my wife.
Yeah, maybe there is a level on which we feel deprived of that hermitage of Tull.
Yeah, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance here, that it's too consumable.
Someone else might enjoy this. I don't know.
I better hide this. Someone could enjoy this.
Yeah.
Tuck it under your bed. Or just whip the disc into the sky. I'm going to stick with that one.
Yeah, I've got the shotgun loaded.
Yep. Oh, yeah, we can do skeet with it.
I like, there are a couple of other moments that I really enjoy, which are similar to, let me see, where was it? Okay, if we go back to Saboteur, we have that kind of vocal play of Mino Saboteur.
Yep.
Here we have break it, take it.
Not quite as, that's more like a very tight echo as opposed to, or a repetition rather, as opposed to like the broken kind of stuttery, but it does elicit the same thing because it's so quick on its own heels.
Yeah, I feel like it's the same impulse. It's like going as far away from lyricism, from a lyric kind of singing as possible. Much more to that. I mean, almost, I don't know, and maybe there's a term for it, but almost that kind of, I hesitate to say this name in a Jethro Tull podcast, Nick, but Michael Jackson.
It's not the first time we've talked about Michael Jackson. Not the first time we've talked about him on this album. Yeah, who also, again, I think we talked about it in the context, was the king of those vocal ejaculations. So yeah, he's really, really, really encompassing this pop sound. He really is. Yeah, you keep adding more fuel to the fire of this argument, and I don't need to be convinced anymore, but you just keep adding that proof, and it's just solid for me that, like, this is a pop album. It really is.
Here's what I struggle with. Is this an earnest... And the answer to this, I mean, there is no answer to this, but this is what keeps me up at night about this album. That and the venti espresso that I have right before I go to bed. But is this an earnest attempt at a pop sound, or is this a pastiche on a pop sound? Is this, we're such clever musicians that we can do our take on this sound as well as anyone who's doing this sound earnestly. We can dip our toes into it just to prove that we can and then move on to something else. Or is this really like, we really love this sound, we really want to go for it? Or is it a third thing? Is the question even not appropriate? You know what I mean? This is the sort of thing that goes round and round in my head.
Right. I think for all we know, it could be any and all of them,
sure,
to some degree or another. But I think a huge factor is the natural progression of getting a drum machine, some crazy multiple versions of synths.
Mm-hmm. The Fairlight.
Getting PJV in there as an outside creative mind who's also considering the idea of producing around that time.
Who's coming at the music from the perspective of a budding producer, absolutely.
Yeah.
And who has a mastery over an instrument which is brand new, or, coming into its age.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's all those factors, and it's that perfect storm of all of these things together, creating this super crazy, unique sound. And again, it's the album version of the Lyricon Blues. We tried it. We didn't stick with it. But we've got this to show for our work here, It
makes me think that maybe pop was so strong, the spirit of pop compelled them, and they fell down speaking in tongues. Pop tongues.
And yeah, and they didn't get exercised until they got panned by the reviewers and the fans.
Until this album was complete.
Yeah.
We have kind of spoken about this before, but there is something about the creative process that at a high level of artistry, there is a sense in which the creative powers are not necessarily your own. That you are a conduit for an idea or a story or a character or a sound or a poem.
Sure.
And so, while I'm tongue-in-cheek saying that this was a pop raptus, maybe it was that. Maybe the 80s were just so powerful.
There is certainly something to be said for zeitgeist, for something to be in the air that everyone can find something appealing about it and can therefore utilize it in their own way. It's new, it's exciting, it's a different sound. Rather than poo-poo it, they embrace it. And he does it in strange ways, but that's how Ian handles things.
And even though, we've talked about kind of some of the elements of sounds that are in this album that live in relation to other sounds that are happening at the time, but I don't think that anyone could in good conscience describe this album as derivative.
No.
It's
no,
like...
I'm trying to think of, even like stretching tongue in cheek, I'm trying to think of a way of an example of what it would be derivative of, and I just
No,
I can't.
It's its own unique, completely original take on this pop spirit, and that
Right.
that I think is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's pop adjacent at best, but it's certainly very poppy when placed in the context of Tull.
Yes. The only other thing I want to say about the music is the flute does come in, but it is very, how would I say, tentative almost.
It's subdued.
It's subdued. It's
some dude.
It's sub don't, maybe.
Sub kind of.
It's sub I wish you hadn't.
It is very subtle. I'm not sure it adds a whole lot. I think it might be one of those super rare instances where
A flute too far.
where who was the designer that was like, look in
Coco
the mirror and Chanel, yeah. If this is a Chanel moment, he should have looked in the mirror and removed the flute.
Wow.
Not that it takes anything away from it.
Can't
You
believe.
know, I just don't think it really adds.
I'm very proud, Nick. I'm so happy. You are quoting a fashion designer. My work here is done. This entire podcast has been a big ploy.
You catfished me, you bastard.
I did. It's been decades in the making.
Yeah, it was. On that note, let's go out to the catfish pond and have a little chat, Omen.
You get a worm, I get a pole. Crawdad.
Said the vicar to the priest. Omen, here we are.
Oh, sure is a beautiful night.
It is. It really is. Those crickets, those peepers.
Do you mind holding the hook for me? This worm is a two-hander.
It's a fighter. It
fighter. Is.
He's going to make some catfish really happy. Oh, my, I heard it scream.
Oof.
That's terrifying. You got that worm from Mary, didn't you?
I did.
Her unsavory ways. Anyway, we have ourselves here. We're doing something a little different, a little new. As you all know, probably most likely at this point, I am participating in a podcast fellowship with Stony Brook University, where I am learning all sorts of stuff, including how to make this very podcast sound better.
He gonna get him to school to get him an education.
Oh, look at this. He's a doctor now.
Don't let him operate on you.
So one of the things is, much like this community that we have built, I am in there with over a dozen other students, and we are kind of forming our own community. And one of my fellow students reached out to me and said, hey, let's do a copy swap about your podcast and my podcast. So Blake is going to read a blurb about Talk Tull to me on his podcast, and Omen and I are going to talk about Blake's podcast. The podcast itself is Abandoned, the All-American Ruins podcast. And I'm not just saying this because we agreed to do a copy swap. Like, Ray and I binged it, and it's very nice. It's very good. The sound, the narration, he does a darn good job.
I'm excited to take a listen to it, and now let's swappy that copy.
Let's swappy that copy. Across the United States, there are thousands of abandoned spaces, the kind that look like they've been raptured. Houses with dishes on the table, churches with Bibles in the pews, factories with assembly lines still intact. In partnership with Radio Kingston, WKNY, Abandoned, the All-American Ruins podcast takes listeners through immersive audio fantasies, recreating host Blake Files exploring abandoned spaces across the United States. Along the way, Abandoned asks critical questions about American history and culture, community, capitalism and economics, the environment, and mental health, while encouraging folks to activate their imaginations as a tool for healing.
Season 1, Anna Moya, follows Blake on the first year of his All-American Ruins journey. Featuring 12 episodes, Blake leads listeners through 12 locations across the United States, including an abandoned Air Force base in Saratoga Springs, New York, an abandoned couples resort in the Poconos, and the genesis of it all, an abandoned dairy farm in the mountains of Colorado.
Subscribe and listen to Abandoned, the All-American Ruins podcast, now, wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more at allamericanruins.com.
The way my body is feeling, I'm surprised that Blake hasn't showed up to walk through me.
You're season 2. It's a deep dive. Yeah.
I am an all-American ruin.
Thank you for checking that out, folks. Greatly appreciate it. I do highly recommend it. Not because Blake has paid me many, many dollars.
Hundreds of cents.
Hundreds of cents have gone into this. Next in line, we're action-packed here. So as you mentioned earlier, Omen, we are at the point where we're getting into review territory. And I thought, what better episode to talk about reviews for the album than Paparazzi?
Now, this is always, the review section is always a little bit tricky. You know, as we get further away from the 70s, there are more and more voices at play. Rolling Stone magazine did not deign to review this album, at least if they did. It did not come up in my internet search. I looked around, and I found a review that I thought is a good balance of a number of different thoughts. So, this is actually from the website Backseat Mafia.
The highly reputable Backseat Mafia.
I'm sure someone has heard of it, Backseat Mafia. The author is John Bryan.
Yeah, John Bryan's mom has heard of it.
This is September 6th, 2019. The mid-'80s were a fascinating and fractious time for what would become known as classic rock. Even compared to their contemporaries, Jethro Tull had been out of step for some time. Quietly anti-drugs at a time when such things were considered to be a vital part of the creative process, their sound had evolved throughout the 70s, and when their survival instincts kicked in as punk rose to prominence, led them to release a trio of folk rock albums, which were as opposed to the current flow of musical trends as it was possible for a rock band to be. The dawn of the 80s saw a huge shift in the band's lineup, and a slightly clumsy attempt to include more synthesizers into their music, before course-correcting with 1982's The Broadsword and the Beast, a surprisingly effective fusion of the classic 70s Tull sound with 80s synthesizers, which met with commercial indifference everywhere except Germany. All things considered, Tull's 1984 Under Wraps was an insanely brave move, as it saw band creative coordinator Ian Anderson form a close musical working relationship with keyboard player Peter John Vitesse, and lead the rest of the band, longtime guitar player Martin Barr and folk rock bass player Dave Pegg, in a full-blooded synth rock direction. This was no well-established sound, with a few synthesizer sounds sprinkled over the top of a futile attempt to sound fashionable. No! Under Wraps was a full-on embracing of a radical new direction for the band. It was daring, it was exciting, and it was not what the fans wanted. To his credit, Anderson had even adjusted his writing style to better match Tull's new musical direction, with lyrics of icy detachment, tales of Cold War espionage, and the whole of Under Wraps having a sort of oddly doom-laden quality about it. Listening to Under Wraps 30 years after its release, you can still hear the huge amount of effort that went into it, as Anderson and the majority of the rest of the band throw their full weight behind this new direction. It appears that only Pegg was less than enthused at the new direction, and given that he had spent the majority of his musical career in folk rockers Fairport Convention, and his rhythmic partner now consisted of Anderson struggling to punch the code into the still emerging technology, his lack of enthusiasm was perhaps understandable. Under Wraps has long been the Jethro Tull album with the least love lavished upon it, simply because it was the one on which the band sounded the least like themselves. Is Under Wraps a good Jethro Tull album? On reflection, no it isn't. Instead, it is the bravest album that any band of their vintage in the 1980s, as a leap of faith that failed because it was a combination of both too ambitious and not what the band's fan base expected, rather than any lack of creativity or effort on the part of the band. All right, that's the review, and kind of historical retrospective there. I think that, you know, perhaps it's not quite as well written as the Rolling Stones stuff, or at least not as well edited, but there's a lot of value to that review, I think, and the reason I chose that one is because it really does highlight what I think is this album's best feature.
Which is going all in on the sound,
Absolutely,
on the technology.
Which is taking a direction and pushing so far in that direction that despite the fact that everyone hated it, it's still something really unique.
So he brings up a good semantic point there. Is it a good Tull album? No. Is it a good album?
Also no.
Also no, maybe? I don't know. But can you separate out the fact... can you look at it removed from Tull and just listen to it as a pop album from that era? I'm not sure you can.
It's hard. It's interesting. It's like, is it a good album? Good at what? Was it a successful album in terms of sales? No, that's concrete.
Okay, so what is a good Tull album, and what makes that good then?
And what I would say is, what
Go fuck yourself.
go and stick a sheet of wrapping paper up your bum. What makes a good Jethro Tull album? I think that for me, fundamentally, what Jethro Tull is about is the prog quality. It's about taking a journey, and the public be damned in a certain way. You know, and obviously they've got bills to pay, and so they have to sell albums. But at the same time, I would rather listen to a band that made a horrible mistake. Not that I'm saying this is a horrible mistake, but
Right.
I'd rather listen to a band that went so far and so dedicatedly in the quote-unquote wrong direction than one who said, yeah, this is the sound that people like, and so we're going to make 100 songs that all sound the same.
Yeah, I think thinking about it as a different direction as opposed to the wrong direction is more academic here and is more valuable to consider than just like, oh, they made a mistake, it's a bad album, we forget it. Like, I really do like and appreciate this album now after going into it.
It's the most illustrative so far, in a way, of what really is at the heart of Tull, which is this spirit of exploration.
Yeah. They don't half-ass anything, and that's very clear with this album.
Yeah. Is this more of a Shackleton expedition than a mission to the moon? Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps this album got caught in the ice and sank. Perhaps this album had to survive on penguin meat.
But the fact of the matter is, people are still going back to the Shackleton site, and here we are right now.
And boy, is it cold.
It's frigid in here.
But I think that, the Shackleton expedition and the failure of the Shackleton expedition and the success of the Shackleton expedition to survive their massive failure speaks more to the human spirit than, someone very cleverly going off and discovering something that they expected to be there and la-di-da.
That's valid. Yeah. Yeah, it's uncharted territory. We don't know how it's going to go. And we survived. I mean, we walk with a limp now because we lost all of our toes on that one foot. But, we lasted a couple more years.
I'll never eat penguin again.
It was my favorite dish, and now it's just ruined.
To the 300th meal. What else do we have to talk about in this little pond escape? Speaking of ponds, Rick, my stepfather, saw a massive alligator in the lagoon behind the house today.
Don't bring Bert to the lagoon.
Lightly rethinking my paddleboarding idea.
I think you should heavily rethink that.
I need to heavily armor my paddleboard.
Yeah, I mean, if you wear a suit of armor, that thing's not going to bite you. You'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. It was big. It was like 10 foot long.
I believe it. Kevlar.
A Kevlar car that drives away from the water.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and that is it. We caught plenty of fish. We let them all go because we did it just for giggles.
Just like our listeners. Catch and release.
Yep, that's right. We're humane here. And let's jump into the
pond.
The context of the pond of this song. Splash. Here we are. I said earlier that I think this one is kind of the most, quote-unquote, for lack of a better term, removed from our story here. It works. You kind of got to crowbar it in there, but it works. But this is more of an Ian song.
Beep, 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 throw it in reverse. Let's back it up here for a minute.
Let's back it up.
Nick, paparazzi, what does the term mean?
Paparazzi is the plural of paparazzo.
Uh-huh.
And it is someone who makes a living off of taking pictures of famous people and selling them. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. That's not the...
Without the famous person's permission.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's not like a photographer like having you pose. It's someone who jumps out from behind a car and takes a picture as you're sneezing right at the perfect moment. And then the headline is Ian Anderson having a stroke? No, he's sneezing.
The term paparazzi actually originates with the 60 Fellini film La Dolce Vita, in which there was a character called Paparazzo,
Oh, cool.
who is a very, very invasive photographer.
Interesting.
And so subsequently, people started to say, "Oh yeah, he's a real paparazzo," and then it got pluralized to paparazzi.
Boy, what a cultural contribution.
Isn't that fun?
To have that, like, to something that you made is now just a well-known term.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
I love that kind of origin thing.
Yeah.
Back to your point, now throwing it back in reverse 3-point turn, back to where we started, I completely agree with you that this does feel much more like an Ian Anderson song rather than the story of the Jean Le Carré world that we've had for most of the album. I am interested to kind of interrogate the lyrics and see, is there some way in which we can square that circle? Is there some way in which we can bake that flourless cake?
I think we can. If we get creative, I think we can.
It's gluten-free.
It's gluten-free, and it's delicious.
Paparazzi can't make the man. Paparazzi can't break the man.
Paparazzi can't make the man. Paparazzi can't break the man.
Now, this is interesting. The very first line almost reminds me of an old expression, which I don't know. I don't think it's Shakespeare, but it's very old. Clothes maketh the man.
Is that... I could be way off. Is that not Polonius?
No, I don't think it's Polonius. It's a proverb.
It is. That it is.
Oh, it's super old. It's Erasmus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Vestis virum facit.
That's cool. For those of you who want the actual pronunciation, Vestis virum facit.
Vestis virum facit.
I love it when you pick on the one thing that I'm good at.
Mark Twain often also said, "Clothes make a man. Naked people have little to no influence on society." He hadn't heard of OnlyFans.
Oh.
Go.
I would subscribe to his OnlyFans. Just a man and his mustache and a cigar.
Wow.
But he's saying funny things, so...
I need to go floss my brain now.
Ew.
Anyway, we're a bit off topic.
Paparazzi can't make the man. Meaning, just because if you're not famous, they're not going to take a picture of you, so they're not going to make you famous. Paparazzi can't break the man. That's a different story. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that one.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, we could talk the whole rest of the pod just about these two lines.
Yeah.
I think we've got the first one sorted. You know, whether someone taking pictures of you doesn't do anything to increase your value to society.
Right.
And I think by the inverse, the adulation or predatory behavior of photographers can't actually change any actions that you've done.
Right. People react for a half an hour about your bad picture, or you punched out the paparazzi,
or you were wearing a really great suit.
Yeah, but then they forget about it, and it doesn't matter.
And it has no influence on how good you play the guitar.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I like it.
I love the description of the sad paparazzi. Next to the transit lounge, see the paparazzi tears. No one came in today from Boston or Tangiers.
Next to the transit lounge, see the paparazzi tears. No one came in today from Boston or Tangiers.
Because that is time where he could have been somewhere else taking pictures of someone else.
Right.
You know, like every hour he's not taking a picture is lost money.
That's right. And so, you know, you can imagine this gang of photographers waiting around the landing strip.
The arrival gate.
Yeah, right. Hoping to see someone famous come off the plane, yeah.
Yeah, and all they see is the day trippers, faceless trippers trip, loaded with duty-free.
Faceless trippers trip,
random schlubs.
Yep. Snap it up, flash away, steal a camel for the day.
Snap it up, flash away, steal a camel for a day.
Now, this is a line that gives me some pause, Nick.
Yeah.
Any notion what the camel reference is about?
I mean, Camel is a cigarette brand.
Mm-hmm.
A camel is a type of plane, but it's like a biplane.
Oh.
The Sopwith Camel?
Oh, that's a reference I was not aware of.
Yeah, it's super old.
Is it possible that, you would be stealing a camel in order to hike out to the villa where somebody's vacationing? And that feels like a stretch.
Right. Maybe it's just a turn of phrase kind of employing that idea.
Huh. So there's an Egyptian proverb. If you love, love the moon. And if you steal, steal a camel.
No explanation. End of podcast.
Well, so the implication is do nothing by halves. The moon is often a stand-in for the beauty of a woman,
Sure.
and a camel is one of the most valuable assets that you can have.
Yeah.
I guess perhaps if we can use that to unlock this song, then the implication is, if you're gonna go and get a picture of somebody, really go for it. Really, hide in their garbage can.
Yeah. Don't half-ass it, because if you get a shitty picture, you're not selling a shitty picture.
Right, because Giacomo Scalini actually was in the bathtub
The whole time.
while Paris Hilton was on the toilet.
Yeah.
My mind has
Bedecked with Nikon necklaces.
But that's when the con necklaces.
I like that.
Great.
I like that imagery. Very nice.
constantly around the neck.
Here are the paparazzi cries. They're weeping. Under their noses walk the famous in disguise, conspicuously huddled there, but no one stops to look.
Paparazzi cries. Under their noses walk the famous in disguise. Conspicuously huddled there, but no one stops to look.
Oh, and then they've got their crayons out to color in the book.
They've got their crayons out to color in the book.
That's the most biting piece of commentary in this whole thing for me, which is, it's infantile what these people are doing.
Yeah, the content that they create is childish at best.
And for people of limited intelligence even.
yeah.
But that little under their noses walk the famous in disguise, that's the kind of line that makes me think, yeah, this does seem like a Ian Anderson escaped the paparazzi one day and then wrote a whole song about it.
Yeah. But also, that is the one line that makes me think that it could fit in with our story.
Are you saying that Ian Anderson was a spy?
I think that's what we're getting to, right?
Maybe there is something. Okay, this is going to be a crazy thought.
Not the first time. Go on.
Not crazy enough. We know that Ian is famously reclusive.
Correct.
I was listening to Rupee's Dance and the song Lost in Crowds. It's a beautiful articulation of that sense of like, I just don't kind of want to be bothered.
Yeah.
And I can turn it on when I need to, but that's almost worse. But perhaps Ian got in the habit of dodging the press, being reclusive, and that made him feel like a spy.
Oh, the satisfaction of it all.
Yes. Oh, I got away with it.
Yeah.
Oh, I've duped the paparazzi with my fake mustache. Wow.
Right.
It's like I'm
Yeah.
a spy.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you are regularly consuming that kind of media, that it's kind of in your mind.
Absolutely.
It's fun, and there's ultimately nothing to lose. If you get caught, you got to deal with the pictures, but if you get through it, it's like that much more satisfying.
What's in your briefcase? It's the drum machine codes.
Yeah, it's a cat.
It's a nuclear cat. A nuclear powered cat.
But that being said, like, this could be our hero sneaking by the KGB who are stationed on the sidewalk, and he just successfully just cruises right on by them.
Yeah. I do think that in order to make this fit into the spy narrative, there is a little bit of stretching that needs to be done, because you should always stretch before you exercise.
limber up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do also like in our little breakdown, paparazzi write it down, paparazzi turn it around, paparazzi take it, fake it, break it, because it's a story. You know, the sense that, like, this is well established in the history of the media, but, you know, this notion that the paparazzi will, or that photographers in general, or that people selling things to newspaper in order to have a bigger scandal or something that is more delicious to the public, stage photos or create
Sure.
situations to make people look worse.
Right.
You know, there's the famous story of Marilyn Monroe, that when they found her dead, the photographers who found her weren't satisfied with the scene of her death, and so moved her around a little bit to make it look more tragic.
Oh my God.
Did I make that up?
I don't know.
Well, and the other bit that has the real spy connotation is now someone's cut the line communications down. All photo film is fogged, celebrities surround and jab their fingers at me. They kiss, but I can't tell. Even the poor paparazzi must have privacy as well.
Now someone's cut the lines, communications down. A photo film is fogged, celebrities surround and jab their fingers at me. They kiss, but I can't tell. You bad boy paparazzi must have privacy as well.
There's kind of a sense of it being turned on its head, or the paparazzi being foiled in some way.
Yeah. He is the spy. The paparazzi is the enemy agent. He's making a game of this unfortunate, miserable side effect of what he has to deal with being a celebrity.
Well, and even in that line, it's almost he takes on the role of being the paparazzo.
Oh.
All photo film is fogged, celebrities surround and jab their fingers at me. You know, suddenly he's the photographer, and the
yeah,
celebrities
yeah,
are saying,
yeah.
"Hey, you, get out of here." They kiss, but I can't tell. I'm witnessing this stuff, but I can't. My camera's jammed, so I can't take a picture of it.
Oh,
Isn't
interesting.
that odd?
Yeah. That's a curious turn there. Well, that's the second half of the song. Maybe it's just a dual perspective thing.
Well, and that stanza specifically is with the music shift, where we kind of get that more
Yeah.
introspective. It's interesting. I mean, this is why we keep coming back to Tull, because we are too pig-headed to stop, and also because even in a song that seems simple, there are these nuggets where it's like, wait a minute, did this whole thing just reverse on us?
Yeah, it feels like it's a tongue-in-cheek turn to give the paparazzi humanity, you know? Like, oh, they're just humans. They're just doing their job. Like, I don't think he genuinely is offering them sympathy.
No.
I think it's more sarcastic than anything. But yeah, because it gets so saccharine, and that music really does pull back.
Do you know that scene in the third of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies where Bruce Wayne steps out of a limo and he hasn't been seen in years, and so all the photographers start going crazy and yelling, and there's all this flashing just for a second, and then he flips a little device out of his pocket and clicks it, and all of the cameras die because it shuts down all the electronics within 20 feet.
It's a personal EMP.
Yeah, and they all go, oh.
I don't remember that. It's been a very long time since I've seen that.
It's a great little detail.
Yeah. So you're saying Ian should have one of those?
Ian invented it.
Oh, even better. Very cool. Yeah. So this song is very different from the Lady Gaga Paparazzi. That's for sure.
That's true.
She is the lover following the celebrity and saying that she's there to worship him.
Right, that's true. That's very true. Although that song is arguably, perhaps, even better known than this one.
I definitely don't think it's worth an argument for that.
I'm your biggest fan, I'll follow you until you love me. Paparazzi, baby, there's no other superstar, you know that I'll be your paparazzi.
But I remember last week I said there's also a song called Paparazzi by Kim Dracula.
Uh-huh. I remember you saying that.
They are trap metal, and it is literally just a cover of the Lady Gaga song.
Oh, I was so hoping you were going to say it was a cover of the Jethro Tull song.
Oh, wouldn't it be better?
I've always thought that Jethro Tull would sound great as trap metal.
I've been saying that for years.
You have been.
I have.
You were the first one to say that.
You keep asking me to stop, and I refuse.
Snap it up, snap, flash away. Speed a camel for a day. Break the story, break and heavy tight. Paparazzi won't be home tonight.
What do we have the pleasure of leaping out of the bushes at next week?
Next week is monumental for several reasons.
Okay.
It is the last track off of the album proper.
That deserves a monument.
If we're in this limbo of weird bonus tracks, 2 more to follow that. It's also our 200th episode. Someone get a paper bag.
200th episode.
200th. And it's appropriate because it's apogee, which is the peak. And I'd say we've peaked about now, right? And it's just downhill from here.
Long ago. Well, how many episodes do we have left after this, after next one?
Well, Ian has said that he's like halfway through his next album.
Right. I mean, obviously it's a moving target, but roughly.
Right. So if we don't add any more, we will end on 292. So we've got about 100 episodes left and the Broadsword bonus tracks. So we've got about 100 left, 100 plus. And we'll just, I mean, if he is punching them out one a year, we're never going to be done.
It's like when your swim instructor says, jump off the diving board, I'll catch you. And you can see that they're already starting to swim backwards.
That sounds very personal, Omen.
I've got a lot to work through.
You going to talk about that? Yeah, okay.
So until Apogee next week, if you want to sneak past the fame grabbers, why don't you disguise yourself in a beautiful Talk Tull to Me t-shirt? No one will take you for anyone famous if you are wearing our merchandise.
The only thing better than stealing a camel for the day is subscribing to our Patreon. For a negligible 311.25 rubles a month, you can gain access to not only our Discord server, but also our 2 additional podcasts a month. Outtake Tull to Me and Feckless, a cornucopia of nonsense.
Paparazzi can't break the man, but a lack of 5-star reviews can break Nick and I.
That's true.
So do us a solid and go on to your pod review place of choice and review us positively. Give us 5 stars. It really helps bring other Tull Skulls into the listening mix.
Until next week, I am the famous in disguise, Nick McGill.
I can kiss but I can't tell, Omen Thomas Sade.
Break this 'cause it's a story. We're the Feckless Momes.
And we are loaded with duty-free. Talk Tull to Me.
Oh, my God, it's starting to get cold. Steve, how long have you been out here? You got here before I did.
Man, I got here last night. I just been drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes for 12 hours.
That's that puddle filled with cigarette butts. Over
Yeah,
there.
you want one? It calms the nerves. Take 2.
Yeah. I'll save one for later. I'll have a Camel. Yeah.
One for each side of your face.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Do you get anybody good? I thought.
Oh, yeah.
I thought.
Yeah.
I saw Macaulay Culkin.
Oh my God! Really?
I thought it wasn't.
What?
It wasn't. It was It was a bag. It blew across the street.
Oh man.
It wasn't him.
I was here because I got here last night because I heard that Nicki Minaj was going to be flying in.
Really?
Yeah.
And?
I've been waiting for her all this entire. Oh my god.
Oh, is it?
Oh my god, Frank.
Is that her?
Frank, get your camera out.
Get her.
Look.
Get her. Is that
Miss Minaj?
Miss Minaj? Is it true?
Oh.
Is it true that you?
Oh,
no.
it's a half deflated nylon balloon,
Yeah.
and
I think it says "Happy Birthday, Grandma."
it does, and it was attached to some squid ink pasta.
Yeah, it's
that's
peculiar.
disappointing.
I'm not sure why that is. So you know, just this morning, as I was coming over here, dude, I got the best picture
Shut up.
of Alec Baldwin.
What? Let me see it.
getting thrown into a garbage truck. Here, look at this.
I want to see it. Let me see it.
Look at this.
Zoom.
Look.
So, that's so good. Zoom in.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve, you know what? I don't think that's Alec Baldwin.
No, I think that's just a garbage.
It's just
bag.
garbage. I understand.
That's embarrassing.
Easy to mistake. Easy to
Yeah.
mistake. Oh my God, Steve,
What is it?
Steve, light my cigarette quick.
Okay.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's getting off the plane over there.
No.
Yeah, let me get my optic zoom.
Yep. Get it. Yeah. He'll be back. Yeah. Terminate this.
Mrs. Schwarzenegger.
It's not a tumor.
Oh,
Oh.
it's a beef plane. It was just a side of beef.
Oh. It wasn't even a cow. It was just like a side of.
It was just
of
it
beef.
was a refrigerator plane. I thought it was
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Have you ever seen Donatella Versace in real life?
No, I don't think so. I don't think she's real.
I spent an entire afternoon hidden in a Japanese restaurant's attic photographing what I thought was Donatella Versace, but it turned out it was just a black piece of silk over a dried squid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, why that would be over the squid, I don't know.
It was a sexy moment.
Were you able to sell those pictures?
Oh yeah,
Like, did anyone want those?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
To Dried
That's
Squid,
great.
Dried Squid magazine.
Oh, nice.
Oh my God, Steve.
What?
Steve,
What is it?
This is gonna be all worth it. Oh my God, you won't believe it. Guess who just got off of Spirit Airlines flight? It's the frickin' feckless Momes.
No.
Yes, both
No
of them at the same
way.
time. Get your camera out. Momes over here. No, it's just a.
That wasn't them at all.
That was just a camel.
Just a camel.
Two ends of a camel
Just two ends.
connected
So-
by the hump.
very strange.
I thought it was the feckless Momes.
Yeah.
I could have sworn. I guess it was just bleating in its camel voice, but I could have sworn it was saying. "Brrr."
No, I definitely heard that. Yeah.
But then I thought it also said, "Talk Tull to me is a proud member of the Feckless Moms Audio Network."
No, I didn't hear that one.
Take a selfie with me, Steve. We'll sell it. We'll sell it for
Okay.
a few pennies.
Yeah. Selfie magazine.
Whoosh.